Have you ever known someone who's gone missing? If so, what's the story? My mother about 20 years ago. She suffered from severe postpartum depression after having 3 children. My grandparents got temp custody of my brothers and I. She disappeared and we never heard from her since then. I'm not sure what happened to her. We never got a phone call or anything about her passing away, and there is no evidence of her online. I'd like to think she found some help, maybe moved on or something, but I don't know. There's a good chance she's homeless. My aunt once alluded to her having other children but wouldn't tell me. I guess it's more frustrating than anything because I'm a 25-year-old woman now and still can't seem to get any answers. I've thought about going through the police but don't want to hurt my elderly grandparents. So in short, she's still missing and I'll likely never know. Wow. My mom left in 2001. Divorced my stepdad, gave custody to him and bounced. No one in my family has seen or heard from her. Well, once in the neighboring town circa 2002 we were shopping at Walmart when my great aunt saw my mom working there. Told her to stay put, your kids are here, they want to see you. Mom punched out right then and there and never returned to that Walmart. We've tried looking, but after one driving while intoxicated arrest in 2003 she fell off the face of the planet. I still wonder about her nearly every day. We have fairly similar stories. I'm sorry you went through this. I think about my mom just about every day too. Just can't let it hold you back from your own life. I'm sorry we can relate to this. To be fair, she wasn't a great mom when she was around, so it's more of a blueprint on how not to treat my own daughter. It's working pretty great, to be honest. Had a friend in high school who had seriously strict parents. He really wasn't a bad kid at all, just doing the normal stuff we all were doing, but his parents decided he needed to go to some kind of military boarding school. We wrote to each other, but it kind of trickled off as a couple of years went by. He came back to our town and we hung out a little, but then he was gone and no one ever heard of him again, including his family. I still think of him to this day. This was the mid-late 70s. There was a girl in my elementary school like this. The prettiest, most popular girl in our class, everybody wanted to be her friend, but I think maybe things weren't great at home. In our town, everybody in public school goes to the same high school unless you get sent specifically somewhere else. After 8th grade, everyone transferred into the high school except her. No idea where she went or what happened to her. Some not nice rumors circulated that were probably all completely false, things dramatic teens make up, like reform school, reform camp, drug rehab. Her parents still live in my hometown. I saw them when I was visiting my family, so it's not like they up and moved their whole family away. She just disappeared from our lives. A girl I knew in my neighborhood growing up in the early 90s disappeared suddenly. She was around 12 to 13. They found her body in a small wooded area not far from her house. My father was a cop at the time and he told me later on that they were basically certain that her brother had killed her, but they couldn't prove it. The parents were covering for him apparently. This was pre-DNA being mainstream days and it had rained, she was outside, etc. Pretty weird story now that I think back on it. Wow. So I'm guessing her brother never got charged and is a free man today? Yeah, that was my understanding of it, unless something happened years later when DNA became more commonly used. The way that it was explained to me is that the brother had some serious psychological issues / learning disability and the police were getting a really suspicious vibe from their parents. Obviously, those things alone don't guarantee anything, but I mean. Is there a name you could share? I'd like to look into it and see if there are any updates. Yep. It's Laura Bird and it happened in Baltimore, Maryland, circa 1986. I actually looked into a little bit myself but didn't get too far into it. Edit, I had the timeline off a little by thinking it was early 90s. It comes back up due to them using a blood sample they took for investigation purposes and that murder to solve another one right down the street. You'll see that when you dig. Let me know if anything interesting pops up. Thanks. Yes, fascinating development. My grandfather. He was a deadbeat dad, drinking all his money and making my mother and grandma suffer a lot. He was violent and used to cheat on my grandma with several women. One day he didn't come after work to the house for about 15 years. Turns out he had won a lottery prize during the 70s and moved to Brazil without telling anybody. My grandma only got a letter a year later saying that she should meet him in Brazil, but my grandma ignored him and married the man she spent her whole life with. Funny enough, he came back during the 90s completely broke and with a debt with some Brazilian mafia dudes. My mom told him to beat it and he threatened us to sell the house unless we welcomed him back in the family. Little did he know that my grandma actually bought back the house from the bank, so he spent the rest of his short remaining life as a homeless man. Your grandma's a badass. She was the biggest badass I ever knew. She passed away a couple years ago and I miss her a lot. Girl used to hang out at the same park I did. Packed urban area, immigrant community, she was just another face in the crowd for me. My friend tried dating her at some point and brought her to my parents' house once. I have an old photo of the two of them. At one point she disappeared. As I mentioned, immigrant community, everyone knows each other's business and there were a ton of rumors. No one had seen her for months. Her mom used to wander the neighborhood looking for her. She was like a ghost. Work, come home, look for her. One day the girl appeared with her mom. Not much in the way of an explanation, just one day walking down the street with her mom. Eventually, the official party line became that she shacked up with a drug dealer or was kidnapped by a drug dealer depending on who you ask. Supposedly in a different part of the city. I was on the phone with my buddy at some point and he had her on the line. Her manner of speaking changed drastically to American slang and she sounded mighty gangster. Told my friend not to call me when he was with her anymore because she was insufferable. Later, another friend hooked up with her. He didn't know the whole disappearing story but said that something seemed off about her. He mentioned that she had a very visceral reaction to certain sexual positions and refused to discuss it. He respected her wishes but she never told him what's what, he just had to adjust after the fact. She died some years later. I don't think we'll ever know the full story. Sounds like she was trafficked maybe? Possibly some version of that. The theory among us was she initially shacked up with a dude that began to take advantage of her and eventually pimped her out. There were a few more details I'm intentionally leaving out, but you're likely not far off the mark. How long was she missing? You'd think since her dialect changed so drastically it couldn't have been less than 6 months. I'd say a year or so. This was at least 15 years ago, so my memory is murky. I remember her mom looking for her in early fall, and she'd been missing before that, and her being back when it was summer. To clarify, her accent was still evident, it was just the word she used. More American slang, specifically gang jargon. I don't want to give too much away on it, but a lot of what she said was gang specific. My friend was in a clique based on our immigrant background and had problems with someone in a gang set she was claiming. He had her on the phone for advice, but to me she sounded like she was trying too hard. My brother-in-law's mother went missing for about a month after finding out she had terminal/inoperable cancer. She called one day saying, "I'm alive, safe, and on my way home." No one knows where she went, what she did, who she saw, or anything. She took the specifics of that trip to her grave. One of my coworkers went missing for 3 days. Turns out his brother's friend thought it would be funny to slip him acid. They locked him in a closet for 3 days while it wore off. Apparently, he went psycho and started screaming about some poet. That friend of the dude's brother had legal repercussions, right? He drugged and kidnapped someone. Even without the acid, that'd make anyone go psycho. No, he didn't press charges. By that point in his life he'd become a guy who forgives people for their mistakes. He just let things happen and didn't care. My friend's boyfriend in high school. The two boys got along like peanut butter and jelly. The boyfriend came out to his parents after their 6-month anniversary. They locked him in the house for a week. No school, no phone, no texts. He read the Bible every day. When they took him to church to ask about conversion camps, he ran off. They found him a week later hanging from a tree not far from his grandparents' place. The town found out what happened after the parents were investigated. My friend had to leave school for a month to get help. He was never the same. The last time he saw his boyfriend was the night he came out. This is happening to a close friend of mine right now. She is 19 and still living with her parents. They are keeping her in the house and emotionally abusing, sometimes physically, her. She goes to work, sees some friends, but stays with them at home. They will kick her out if she doesn't go to church. She is so depressed she can't even get out of this situation. I can't do a thing as I live on the other side of the country. Once they find out she's gay, it's over for her. Please, call CPS and the police in her town so they can check on her and try to get her help. There has to be some LGBTQ organization, charity, or women's shelter nearby that can help her. She is 19. What's CPS gonna do? Is this in the US? If so, she's legally an adult and it's officially become a kidnapping case, at the very least false imprisonment. If she leaves and her parents call the cops to return her, once they find out she's over 18 they'll laugh in their faces. She literally just can't fathom to leave. She keeps setting goals for herself, save 1,000, buy a used car, that she will meet but then still stay. It's just emotional abuse and I guess a weird case of Stockholm? I don't know. My neighbor's wife disappeared one day. Then they found out the husband cooked her in their restaurant for 3 days. He drained the liquids into the grease trap and threw the bones into the garbage. Never found those. But he kept her skull for his mom's attic. He got a new girlfriend within weeks of his wife's disappearance, and when he noticed the cops following him on a drive with his girlfriend, he confessed everything to her, stopped the car and jumped off a huge cliff, and lived. When they asked him why he killed her, he just said, "She was too loud." Was this in Florida? I know of a guy who ended up cooking his wife as well, and the restaurant was a front for drug money. I could be off by a few details. This was a long time ago. It was in Southern California. His name was David Vian if you want to look up the story. Y'all may be talking about the same guy after all. Back in 2017, my grandfather went missing. He walked pretty much everywhere and rarely stayed home if he didn't have to, so when he told my grandmother he was going to get a haircut, all she said was to drive since it was raining. But he didn't come home. My grandmother called my dad, she lived in Washington State and we're in Florida, and he immediately called the police department up there. Booked the soonest flight and went to help search. It took a couple days, but they found his car about 80 miles from their house, on the side of the ride near a rather steep hillside in Nia Bay. The police searched the car but found nothing suspicious, though they didn't find him. The area his car was found was too steep to properly walk down. Dogs struggled to get down there, according to Dad. It was bizarre. A few weeks later, his body washed up about a mile from where his car was, but it was missing parts, specifically his leg. His leg ended up washing up on that beach in Canada that has feet show up randomly. We knew it was his because he wears a very specific type of orthopedic shoe. We still have no idea what happened to him. Another odd part was that during this, my sister was a junior in high school and was in anthropology class. Teacher pulled up an article about that beach, and the photo they used in the article was Grandpa's foot. My sister told her teacher, "I think that's my grandfather's?" But she wasn't sure because my parents hadn't told her. Her teacher called my mom, because he thought she was just being inappropriate, who had to explain that no, she was right. Was that really how your sister found out? How'd that go down after her teacher called? So, she knew my grandfather was missing and had died. She didn't know the details, like where he was found or how his body was found. She just knew that they located his body and it was cremated. She was especially close to him, so my parents didn't want to upset her and simply didn't give her the extended details. My mom told me that when her teacher called, he explained that he thought she was acting out because it's uncomfortable to talk about the dad, and seeing body parts may have resulted in her making jokes. He wasn't angry or anything. He just wanted to touch base so my parents could make sure she was okay and not uncomfortable with the topic in class. My mom explained what had happened to him and then said that his leg was found on that beach, but my sister didn't know. But my mom asked for the article link to double check, and so it was confirmed, like, yeah, that's Grandpa's shoe. Her teacher felt so bad and apologized the next day. But it did get around the school that he accidentally exposed a student to their dead grandfather, so my sister was less than thrilled with that. This friend of mine's kid went missing 7 years ago now. He was an artist about 17 years old. He was on his way out west, I think to go to school maybe, or to travel before school, I can't remember. But I watched her Facebook posts for the next 6 years as she just slowly unravels. She was looking for her son, traveling all over the country, hiring private investigators, hiring various firms, spending time in homeless encampments for teenagers. About 2 years ago she was posting these really long rambling posts about, how dare people tell her to get over it and move on, didn't they know her heart was broken? People that she thought were family would never give up like this on her son. And then they found his bones. And now she's like totally returning to a normal, posting about normal stuff. So what happened to him? No idea, just found his bones in a ditch somewhere out west. And matched his DNA. Probably murder. College Town, the favorite bartender. The story goes, he was leaving the local grocery store and noticed a guy, who he thought was one of his regulars, trying to hitch a ride. Even as the guy approached, Squally said he realized it wasn't the guy. But it was too late. He hopped in the passenger's seat and stuck a gun in his ribs. Told him to keep driving. 5 days and a few states later, the guy pulled off the highway and drove for hours into the mountains of TN. Stopped to take a piss and didn't come back. Squally drove car back to the last gas station he saw. Insane. Yikes. I live in the mountains of Tennessee. Do you know where in Tennessee it ended up? I don't, to be honest, this was almost 20 years ago. It was clear that it had affected him. I had so many weird questions when he showed back up, but I never wanted to press him. Did you at least give him a hug? Man needed a hug after that. Absolutely. We also had to reconcile all the crazy conspiracy theories we had during that 5 days. We thought addiction, mistress, CIA agent? Lol, seriously, where did he go? So lucky to walk back in the door of his home. Totally changed his outlook on life. My mom's grandfather served in the British Army for World War II. Once the war was over, everyone expected him back, but he didn't return. They were told that he was taken a prisoner of war in Germany and the authorities weren't sure what must have happened. My mom's father was 5 or 6 at that time. Eventually they moved on with life. Surprisingly, he returned after about 5 years, like nothing happened, though he had a lot of stories to share. They then moved to Iran to serve there, then came back and retired after a few years and 4 more kids. He lived a long life thereafter and passed away just before my sister and I were born. How did he escape from there? A few soldiers were sheltered by Italian residents around the camps. They helped them with food and roof for some time and they were then rescued by the Indian Army post-independence. What was he doing those 5 years? The prisoners of war were used as laborers or slaves by the Japanese and German soldiers. They had to work 16 hours a day to get a sweat potato for dinner every night. It was ruthless. There were also reports of the Japanese soldiers eating the prisoners of war. Anyone who asked for food or water was shot right in the head. Jared Hanna. I didn't know him personally, but most of my town did. Dude is still missing 10 years later and nobody has any clue what happened. His mother tried to cover up some of his unsavory habits and probably prevented the police from finding a lead, but that's just what I've heard. I hope someone finds something eventually. Edit, link, for anyone that wants to read up on it. This one might get a little disturbing. I was the person who went missing when I was about 6 years old for about 2 weeks. I don't remember much of it, but I know it definitely happened as I have scars and stuff from it, but I can't remember what exactly happened. I was taken by my cousin and held for 2 weeks before they found me. Those entire 2 weeks were one big blur. According to my parents, they said I had many slash wounds, cuts, bruises, and burns, and the police had found evidence of me also being SA'd. I remember being told it happened, but not really remembering any details after that and in my teens, but I also had a lot of problems with new people and started being scared of adults and anyone new. Until more recently, but even now, it's like all in bits and pieces with no real clear chronological order. Here are some of the pieces I have put together that I feel at least somewhat comfortable sharing. I remember sitting in a bathtub while bleeding and having someone, not my cousin, yell at me and touch my testicles. I also remember being attacked and bitten by a dog while my cousin and this other abuser, the same person from before, watched. I also remember being hit with a belt until I bled and having had my feet pressed against hot coal. It's only things like that that I remember, and they are not in order, and I've recently tried to call the police to investigate the other abuser I had mentioned and possibly take them into custody. Now I'm a 23-year-old who just got out of college, but I still regularly go to the therapist for regular nightmares and still find myself getting nervous and sweating when I deal with middle-aged men. My dad did. Not in the joking kind of out to get milk/a pack and never returned. This was before cell phones were commonplace. I was really young. The morning had been super normal. He got up and went to work like he always did. Then at around mid-morning, his boss called and asked where he was. He never showed up. My mom couldn't leave work, so my aunt went driving around looking for his car, super bright color and unique looking. After an hour, they called the police. It wasn't until that evening that we got a call that he had gone to his parents because he was having a mental breakdown and didn't know what to do, and his mother, she was a powerhouse of a woman with a gentle touch, made him check into a mental hospital. I was never told any details, but I think he had originally planned to kill himself in the local mountains and had a brief moment of clarity. Crazy that it's possible for a workplace to not allow someone to leave work to look for their missing husband. No one should have that kind of power over someone else's life. She worked in a childcare setting alone. She couldn't just leave them. I had a friend in middle school. I remember her parents had a messy divorce. She slept at our house because her mom and her lived in what was known as a bad neighborhood. We spent every day together for 3 years. One day she stopped picking up the phone. We went to her house, it was empty. I was 12. I have spent the last 16 years trying to find her with all the information I remember about her. I think my mom or dad called the police when she vanished because her mom and stepdad were also gone and they told us that there was no crime. Her mom had worked for years at the same place and she called no show. She had a really common name. We had a best friend contract. I signed it when I was 9 or 10 and I'm going to keep looking for her. I promised. Is this in USA? If it is, it may be really easy to find her. I have tried every public record I can. She has one of those super common names, and if her mom remarried and changed her name? Did she get married? Her family could be off the grid. I have no idea. If you remember her old address you may find history on it, and previous owners/renters. I did try that, but with the neighborhood she was living in the records are spotty to say the best, and I think it was her stepdad on the records and I never knew his last name. Try fastpeoplesearch.com, it's creepy how much this one knows. If I was better with the internet I would give you all the awards. I think I found her but I don't know what to do next. I found a Facebook page but it doesn't look active. There is an address but the information lines up. She was married at some point and for a while. I really think I found her. I never thought this day would come so I have no idea what to do. A couple years after my grandpa died from cancer my grandma started dating a guy named Buck and his daughter had gone missing when she was 14. Buck's sister, her friend and his daughter went horseback camping in a rugged area of Utah. When Buck went to his sister's house a week later to pick up his daughter Julia, his sister calmly explained that Julia wasn't there, as halfway through their trip they woke up one morning and Julia wasn't in her tent. Buck's sister and her friend said they looked for Julia but never found her and returned home with the horses. Buck called the police and the investigation uncovered a lesbian relationship between his sister and the friend, but after an extensive search, they didn't find anything. His sister refused to speak to him ever again. Buck spent the next 10 years looking for Julia, hired the best horsemen to cover the terrain, hired private investigators, bloodhounds, experts in the area who knew the terrain, plains. As technology advanced he would try anything new to find evidence, but nothing ever turned up. He lost a ton of money to the searches and his marriage, as it destroyed him and he couldn't move past it. He spent weeks alone, on horseback and foot, looking, searching, and talking to her. He theorized to me that he believes his sister and her lover went after Julia to grape her, and when she fought back they killed her and dumped her body in one of the many deep ravines that are unsearchable and unreachable. Even decades later he seemed obsessed and said he couldn't wait to die, to find out what happened and to get to hold Julia again, in heaven. Jesus Christ. How can they not be charged with some kind of neglect? They were responsible for her on this trip. How did they not get in any trouble at all? What about the third horse? Was that gone too? The fact that the sister just did not care about his daughter being missing is suspicious. They had all 3 horses, they had everything but Julia and the explanation as to where she was. Her tent, sleeping bag and belongings were there. They turned this over to police once the investigation started, but soon after refused to cooperate and never spoke to Buck or the rest of their family again. Buck's parents and brother desperately tried to help, but the sister was a dead end. The police suspected the 2 women were involved or responsible, but didn't have any evidence to go on and didn't have enough circumstantial. Buck had pressured the district attorney, based on her disappearance, on their care, their lies about being friends versus lovers, and their failure to call authorities / cold demeanor / refusal to cooperate. There was no DNA testing back then, and the district attorney didn't want to charge them with such a weak case, in case stronger evidence was found later. Buck passed away 16 years ago, adamant his sister and her lover had killed his daughter.